Welcome back to the Chasing Happiness podcast, an honest podcast about finding happiness, what it really means, and the process of getting there. My name is Crystal, and today I am joined by my wonderful friend, Kim, and we are going to talk about what she does and all of her wonderfulness. But before I do that, I do just want to say to everyone who is listening, a huge thank you, because Kim and I have tried to record this more than once. And it is COVID. We are dealing with technical issues. Everything is happening via Zoom, but we are finally here together. We are finally able to hear each other and see each other, even though at home you cannot see us. I promise we both look gorgeous. And so we are going to chat today about everything. But first, before we get into that, Kim, for the people who don't actually know you, like I know you, do you want to give yourself a quick little introduction and let people know what you do?
I would love to. And thank you for that introduction. I am happy to be able to see you because you're like a ray of sunshine and I love your pink hair. Every time I see your hair, I'm like, oh, I should just dye mine. Just go for it. A little bit about me. Where do I start? So I'm a mom. I have a 2-year-old daughter who I think the world of and is going through the why period of her life, asking why to everything, which I love because I like independent, strong women, just not when they question me. I have 3 cats. I have a dog. I have a wife. I love gardening. I love book writing. And I like the different things in life. So if anyone identifies as weird or they say anything that's kind of negative, but like not really negative, that's what I'm drawn to, because I feel like that's when we own our like inner power and who we truly are. So that kind of is part of what got me started on with my business, Retroscripts. It's one of my other babies. Really, it's evolved and it's more reflective of my life and who I am. So as I said, I like the weirdness, but I like the layers that go into stories and the layers that make up people who they are, unapologetically who they are. And yeah, I guess that's a little bit of an intro. I'm going to go into too many things, I'm sure. So
that's a great little intro because it leads me into some of the questions that I have for you, because you, with what you do, you help people basically tell their stories and get comfortable in their own skin through telling their story. And there's this amazing thing that happens. And I know because I've attended one of your workshops, there's this amazing thing that happens when you create this safe space for people to explore this thought process of who are you really, without the rest of the world asking you that question. Who do you believe you are? And if you were a superhero, for example, what would you look like? And all of these things that just get you really thinking. And as a woman, it can be hard to do that, right? Because we carry so many different hats and we're constantly trying to be everything. So being able to sit in that space and actually explore what that might look like for yourself is transformative. So how did you get to a place where you are not only able to create that space for others, but you are comfortable? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that.
Definitely. I would probably have to go back to when I was a kid, actually. So I grew up in a very abusive, difficult kind of situation. Not everybody in my immediate family was that way, but there was one person in specific who just kind of tried to suppress who I was. So I wasn't allowed to show like the darker side of myself because I'm going to say death, but I love like the journey of death. I love nature. I love all those things. I loved making up stories in the forest. But this person just tried to put a lid on me and control who I was. And it damaged me growing up because I tried to fit every mold that I could. So I was the jock on the sports team. I was part of every club in school. I got such great marks. And it wasn't until I was in middle school, actually, when I kind of reported some of the things that were going on. And a teacher said to me, well, we'll separate you from your siblings if that's what you want. That I realized that people don't necessarily listen to what you're saying and they don't care about you. Not everyone, but most people don't care about you. They just want to care about keeping the order, keeping things going. So then I was put in a special class for smart kids and kicked out probably 2 to 3 months later, because even though I had the intelligence and I was bored in the regular classes, I talk and I like to tell stories and I fidget all the time. And it isn't the way smart people are supposed to be or normal people are supposed to be. So that kind of just added to me being that pot on the lid and pushed me down and pushed me down.
Right.
And then we would fast forward to when I was in my 20s. I remember sitting on a beach And I'm going to say trigger warning because this is kind of a deeper story, but
Sure.
sitting on a beach and my friend had just passed away, someone close to me. And I felt like it was kind of my fault. It wasn't, like, looking back, it had nothing to do with me. They were going to do what they did anyways, but it's just all that weight. And I was looking out into the water and I was like, okay, I have two paths that I can take. I can walk out into that water and never be heard of again and let it all go. And that's an option. And for some, it's the best option that they see.
Sure.
Or I could just say, screw it all and become the person that I want to be. Because what do I have left to lose now? Everybody has their opinions of who I am. Everybody sees me a certain way. So if that idea is already in their minds, why not create the person that I want to be? So, like, literally from that moment on, I was like, screw it all. I'm trying not to swear because I have a potty mouth, but
No
I
worries.
just let it go. And from that day on, I literally, what you see or what you hear is what you get. I'm not afraid anymore to just show who I am. And I love it because it helps other people bring out who they are as well. The weirdness and the quirks and all that roughness. That's what makes us who we are. And if I hide that, the people that I help aren't going to reveal that themselves and feel great, right?
100%. And it's such an interesting thing because I think a lot of people can relate, right? We grow up in this world that's constantly trying to put this lid on who we are as little kids. It's trying to suppress, those instants where we have like this urge to like be a unicorn or
Yeah.
whatever it happens to be, right? Chase butterflies all day, whatever it is, right? Like that's not, the ladylike thing to do, or that's not, what boys do. And we get these labels and we get this sort of expectation from society. And I can tell you as a 40-year-old woman now that, not everyone has that revelation in their 20s of I can be who I want to be and screw the rest of the world kind of thing. So that's huge. And the fact that you're able to use that and use your power to help people tell their stories is fantastic. And the way that I found out that you do this is we're part of a network online. Of women entrepreneurs who support each other. And you were talking one day about helping people sort of on their deathbeds learn to share their stories. And that's a huge deal because one of the things I've noticed, especially as I get older, and I start talking to more and more people that are of the age of my grandparents, because my grandparents died a long time ago, I start to see all of these amazing stories about our history that are being lost, family stories that because it was never acceptable to talk about, nobody is aware of. And all of that is getting lost. So the fact that you're doing this for people and helping people with this, I think is huge. So I do want to ask, like, why did you start here? Like, what was it about that sort of drove you? Did you have the same kind of visualization that I've been having? Like, how did that go?
Pretty much. So, first of all, I don't understand how we're supposed to know who we are as individuals if we don't know about our history, if we don't know about our grandparents, we don't know about our great grandparents, because I truly believe that these things are also born with us. There's no way that you can spend 9 months or whatever it is inside of a woman and not absorb some of that memories. And that memory gets passed down from female to female, male, all that kind of stuff, right? So it's all there. And the more knowledge that we have, the more we can kind of better prepare ourselves for the crap fan that's coming at us called life, because it's all going to hit you, right?
Right.
So I worked at a hospice in Burlington for 5 years. And honestly, it was one of the best jobs I've ever had. Back, what grade was I? In grade 3, I think that's when I first realized that death and dying doesn't bother me. I was there when an animal was dying and I kind of stayed with it and made it this like little bed and like actually had a funeral, because in my childlike mind, I was like, who's going to be there for its funeral if I'm not there? So I literally went all out, made it this like coffin and had all this stuff and pretended there was other animals. And that was seen as so weird. And like, I guarantee my parents were probably like, oh God, there's something wrong with her. But it like literally hurt my heart that this thing that had passed away couldn't leave something behind. Like it was just gone, wiped out. Nobody would ever remember it or think of it again.
Right.
So I kind of thought in my head, this is my job to remember it. And even though I obviously knew nothing about it, I just made up a story.
Sure.
So now when I was working in the hospice, it hit me again that the people that were passing away, some of them were having difficult deaths. And it was almost like I could feel that they were holding on too tightly to something. So speaking to another lady and being kind of naive, I was like, "Okay, why are you afraid of dying? Like, what's wrong?" And she kind of looked at me and was like, "I'm not afraid of dying." And then she said she was afraid of being forgotten. And it was like a light bulb went on in my head. And I was like, that is so true. We go through our lives having experiences, meeting new people, and being who we are. And then at the end, it's just gone if we don't share it. Like we take it all with us. And I feel like our memories and those experiences are like worth more than money. Like you cannot take those things with you.
Right.
So I noticed that when I started writing books, the first one I did was just on loose leaf paper. I just quickly scribbled down as much as I could and gave it to the lady. And I said, "This is confidential. I can't give it to anybody. But if you would like to, here's what you've told me so far. Do with it what you will." She was young, and I think her daughter was probably in her early teens and not coping well with her mom passing away as anybody else would.
Sure.
And so when her mom gave her that book, I noticed a huge difference. So they started talking and laughing about what was in the book. Her mom burned her bra because she wished she could have been one of the women's in the 70s. So
Oh
she
my
just did it,
gosh.
but she did it at a bar and it like caused mayhem. But it was like such a funny
Oh my
story.
God.
But it was something that she'd never seen her mom in that light. Like she just saw her mom
Sure.
as an older woman, right?
Right.
And all that stuff. So then I kind of just started experimenting and writing different people's stories until I kind of built up my own routine. And then I started the business with it. I think even if I didn't start my business, I'd still want to do this because it made such a difference in so many people's lives. Now I always advocate you don't have to be on your deathbed to write your life story. I've written mine, parts of it. Like we don't know when that time's going to come, right?
Sure.
So why don't you start writing it and just sharing it now? And even reading some of the books that I've written, I learned things about my own life because these are people that have gone through stuff that now I'm going through. So why would I make the same mistakes when I can
Right.
see how they handled it and handle it better for myself? So yeah.
That's a huge thing. And I think that's one of the reasons why story is so important because there are so many lessons in our family history, in our personal history, in, the world as a whole history. Even if we're talking history just within the last 10 years, look at the last year and a half or 18 months or however long it's been. There are so many lessons to be had in all of these things that we go through. And if we're not
Mhm.
talking about them, if we're not sharing that story, and you don't have to like share publicly and like publish a novel or
Yeah.
any of those big things, but talking to your kids, your nieces, your nephews, your neighbors, the people who you care about, who want to
Mhm.
know what it's been like. I have a friend who moved overseas a couple of years ago because of COVID and everything that's happened in the last year and a half. She's moving back home. And I can't wait to talk to her about the differences and the lessons and how that transition has been because I've never moved out of this country. I can't imagine what it's like to go to a foreign country just on a whim and never come home for a while, right? There are so many facets to everything we can learn from each other by talking,
Exactly.
by sharing those stories. So I love that this is what you do. And it's not all that you do. As you said, you are
Yeah.
a mom, you are a wife, you are a fantastic gardener. So for those people who
Thank
are
you.
who are listening today, I will post in the show notes for this episode, I will post obviously the website, Kim's business, and all of her social media because she is a fantastic gardener. You all, if you listen to this podcast regularly, know that I like to garden. But let me tell you, my girl has been 100% like outdoing any person I know growing anything this year. The tomatoes and oh my God, like everything you've been posting, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I had 3 tomatoes. The squirrel didn't steal. Like, I'm happy about that. And then the next day you posted this picture of this huge bushel of tomatoes. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing.
Do you want to know what the secret is? And
Yes.
it's not really a secret, but I truly believe that every living thing actually feels like not feels as in pain and all that, but just there's something there. I talk to my garden. My wife
Oh,
thinks I'm insane, but like literally when I'm going through, I'm telling it about my day, I'm telling it about my daughter, telling it whatever, but also listening. So the squirrels, I have a squirrel that used to steal from my garden. And one day it just clicked. I was like, well, maybe he's stealing for a reason. I live in a city. I live on a busy road. You
Right.
can't find anything but garbage. So maybe he like loves the taste of my nutritious food,
Sure.
whatever. So I started leaving stuff for him, and he only takes the stuff I leave him, whatever is
Oh,
there.
oh my God. I
So,
love this.
right? My garden, like the dirt, I think I always sink my hands into the dirt while I'm planting, and I believe in energy exchange. So putting it all in there, and then I get back whatever I put in, right?
I
So
love it.
as woo woo as some people say it is, we can't prove, like, it's proven that energy does cycle and
Right.
is exchange. So why wouldn't it work? So
100%. And clearly it does work because you have a fantastic freaking garden. And I think you're right. I was reading a book and I cannot remember who the author is off the top of my head, but it's like the cell has a memory or something like that. And I'll have to look it up to be able to put it in the show notes. But it talks about that. It talks about the fact that every living cell has a memory. And as you were saying a few minutes ago, we do pass it down generation to generation. And your body basically, maybe that's what it's called. The body has a memory. I'm going to have to Google it because I cannot remember off the top of my
no
head.
worries.
But it's this not just the energy exchange, but the fact that everything remembers. And, for you, that squirrel remembers, oh, don't take it right off of the tomato plant because she's going to leave me some. And the fact that he wants a tomato instead of, we both happen to live in this really metropolitan area. So gardening is not something that happens very frequently. And, that's exactly how I felt about it this year. I, for the first time, planted purple heirloom tomatoes. And
Nice.
of course, that's the first thing the squirrel went for as soon as they started, right? And I was like, you know what? Like, okay, maybe he's never experienced a purple tomato before. I can go to the grocery store and buy one. He can't, right?
Yep.
So it's just, oh, I love you, but I am just so even more in love with you. It's fantastic.
Thank you. But that even brings me back to an idea I wanted to share with the squirrel and trying to understand the squirrel and seeing things from his or her perspective, right? As weird as that sounds, it's very much the same as humans. So listening to stories, I can look at somebody overseas and think they're so wrong. The way that they live is incorrect. But if I was to listen to their story and take the time to kind of not even put myself in their shoes, but just to listen and absorb it, I would understand better why they do the things that they do. Maybe the things I find annoying or the things I disagree with make sense to them.
Right.
And I kind of feel like, especially now with everything with COVID and people not listening to each other, how many wars, how many issues would never happen if we just took the time to tell each other their stories and why we're feeling the way we do.
100%. And it's interesting that you bring that up because I think, especially right now, so you and I both live in Southern Ontario and we are finally out of lockdowns. We are finally able to sort of have a summer, but there are already rumors about a new lockdown because numbers are going up. We're in the middle of this weird federal election that's been called sort of spur of the moment. And I think if we just collectively as a country sat down and listened to each other, here's why someone doesn't want to follow the rules, or here's why this province is making decisions that are different from the province you live in. And again, as you said, like worldwide, how people live, what's important to them, why it's important to them is so drastically different. We live in Southern Ontario. I turn on a tap, I have clean water. That's not the case for some people who live in Northern Ontario and a lot of other places just in our country alone, let alone around the world. So what's important to them? Maybe for them, that's their biggest issue. For me, that wouldn't be my biggest issue. But how do you know if you're not willing to talk to people about it with an open mind and without any judgment to change their views, which is huge. We don't do that enough in this world.
And we don't take the time to try and do it. Like, I'm not saying that everyone can just go into a conversation without judgment. Right. We all judge. It's just part of being human. But there's a difference between trying not to judge and opening your mind. Yes, I can still think what you're saying is wrong or incorrect, but I can still listen and try to find those nuggets that I can either agree with or come to understand. I kind of have taken a step back from social media, at least reading it. I post all the time, but I just don't read other people's stuff, even my friends' things, because it's just people yelling into the wind about what they think is correct. And like you said, not taking into consideration why somebody is doing what they do and what they have. I think that a lot of people I know are lucky enough to have that clean water, to have their steady income, to have food, all that kind of stuff. And that's great. I want that for everybody. But you're not taking into consideration what other people don't have and why they might be doing, the fears that they have, the experiences they've had in the health system, why maybe they're not getting vaccinated because this, and this happened, and the trust isn't there. Sure. Trust isn't demanded, it's earned. And if you don't earn the trust, then how do you expect people to follow you, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's such an interesting, I'm going to say interesting time that we live in, because my hope is based on the people that I surround myself with and the people you surround yourself with and this sort of community of people that we have, that by the time your daughter is our age, that we will be in that place where people are communicating on that level and they are open to the fact that things are different, and that's okay, as long as we can collectively support each other in those needs in the best way that's humanly possible, while understanding it's legitimate for you to feel the way you do. I don't need to tell you you can't feel that way. Maybe I just need to be there to support you to get to wherever you think you're comfortable in that process. And, sort of, I feel like collectively holding each other's hands and just supporting each other. But I am an optimist, so maybe that's my wishful thinking. We will see what happens.
I like to say I'm a dark optimist. I know the reality, but I want the best. I do.
Right.
And that's actually kind of what made me start the Life Unleashed writing course that I started, and people have been loving. At first, it was just about looking at who you are. But the new edition that I put on is New Beginnings. And it's all about life after the pandemic, after COVID, and kind of owning who you are. But it's turned into, every time I do it, there's always a group of 4 to 5 people who literally, as you said, hold hands and support each other. So my only rule is that nobody openly judges each other and shuts each other down. So if you are pro-vaccine and you want this and you write about it. Be honest, open it up, and we have a discussion as we read our writing. Right. If you are not for vaccines, be honest, be open, and whatever stays, like it happens in our room, it stays in the room. And that's just the way it is. And it's amazing because I do have people with very different opinions in the group, but by the end of it, it's literally holding hands and being like, I see your point, or I understand your point. I still have my own, and I'm still not changing my mind, but I hear you and I get it. So I don't know. I feel like that's what's needed right now.
100%, 100%. And the fact that you are helping people to see you can have differences in opinion. You can totally be on totally opposite sides of the coin, but you can still at least attempt to understand where someone is coming from. You can let them have their valid view and you can have your valid view. And it does not have to be an us versus them kind of society. It can be that's fine. That's where you are. This is where I am. We still love and support each other. And imagine what we could accomplish as a world if this is the approach we took to everything.
Exactly. I 100% agree. I can remember I went to my wife's nephew's confirmation, and I was in the church, and somebody said, "Oh my God, you're in the church, like you're here." And I was like, well, "Yeah, it's his confirmation, but you're so spiritual. You don't believe in God and all that. You believe in a bunch of different." Yeah, I do, but I will always respect you and stand by you with what you want. And that was just such an eye-opening thing that people were shocked. And I was like, I guess people don't always do that. If you were, I don't care what you are, I'll still go and support you. And I feel like everybody should be that way. It's something that means something to you. You be there and you support.
Absolutely. And we don't need to pressure people to feel the way we do or believe what we do. Part of the thing that makes us so amazing as human beings is those things that we find different, right? Someone is spiritual and maybe believes in unicorns, and someone, prefers Buddha, and someone prefers Jesus. That's all okay. There is no right or wrong as far as I'm concerned. It's just a matter of what makes you happy and what fulfills you in your daily life. That's the important part, right? As long as you're not harming another human being in the process,
then go for it.
Right? Yes.
Exactly.
100%. You and I are so on the same page. It's not even funny. So you did mention the writing groups that you do. And I know you're on Facebook because obviously that's where you and I, chat and all the fun stuff.
Yeah.
But you also have a website. So do you want to mention what the website is so that people can see what you do? And I, of course, again, will post all of your links and stuff in the show notes, but let people know how they can find you.
Sure. So it's retroscripts.ca. As you said, you can find a link there because I know sometimes I say retroscripts and people are like, what are you saying? But basically it all surrounds about the unapologetic you. That's everything that I write, all the writing courses, all the books. It's all about you and yourself and your layers and basically peeling yourself back and looking at your layers and then looking at other people's as well. So I do the Life Unleashed writing course. There's a bunch of new editions that actually I'm going to be launching soon. So there's going to be a Halloween Fright Night kind of one.
That's exciting.
Something for Christmas self-care, badass mothers. That one I'm really excited about because obviously a lot of what I do is geared towards women because that's what I'm surrounded by.
Sure.
But I don't like the fact that when I gave birth, everyone called it this magical, beautiful, soft time and da da da. And I was like, no, it was hard. I had to be this warrior. I had to fight. So what I want to do is help people tell their true birth story or their pregnancy story or their baby story or whatever and own it. I felt like doors were shut on me when people kept saying, oh, it's so beautiful. Or when I was exhausted, oh, you're a new mom. You're supposed to be exhausted. No, I can own and say, I'm freaking tired. I need help. You know what I mean? So all the prompts and for all the courses are all geared around you just expressing who you are and coming to terms with it. I also do a Untethered Word Components to Book Writing course. So I'm an author. My dad's also an author, and I've helped other people write their books. And I hated the process. And the reason I hated it was because there's so much pressure to do it a certain way. My brain is so wonky. It does not work the way people want it to.
Right.
So it just didn't work for me. And I also think that like you, we have so many things going on. We don't wear just one hat. We have a million. So I wanted to develop something where you can incorporate publishing and writing your book into your regular life and not go insane doing it or go bankrupt doing it. So I turned it into an online course instead of an in-person course. And it's just about birthing your book and then how to promote it and how to publish and do all those fun things without going insane. So I think when people look at the website, they'll see that, how do I say, I'm not very businessy. Like I'll say I'm the worst businesswoman ever, but I will always support the person. I care more about who you are and that outcome, right? The feeling, right. The emotion that you're going to gain. So,
well, and I think that's what makes you such a great business person, in my opinion, because as we've gotten to know each other, you are human and I want to connect with humans, right? Like, I don't want someone who's all tied up and like professionally dressed. And like half the time I show up to these podcasts with my pajamas on. I am not in pajamas today, just FYI to everyone listening.
I totally am.
You know, you have a podcast to record at 8 a.m., right? And you're like, oh, I had a rough night and whatever. And life happens. And so connecting with another businesswoman who understands life happens and who is allowing for life to happen in all of the interactions around. That's huge because we as women, especially, I feel, we live in this society where we are told in order to be business professional, you have to look this way. You have to act this way. You have to do this. Like when Zoom first started at the beginning of the pandemic, the number of people who told me like, you should really put on makeup. You should really do your hair. And I was just like, I don't do my hair or wear makeup on a regular basis. Why would I do it for Zoom?
Right? Exactly the same. Exactly. I won't do it. I'm not going to. Like my hair thrown up like this. This is what you will get. And I hope you enjoy it because it's not about what I look like. It's about what's coming out of my mouth and what's going on in my head and how I can help you, not about what I look like.
Right. And how I look shouldn't matter. If I can help you in whatever way it is that I'm trying to help you, how I look shouldn't matter. And it's one of the things I love about you because you do allow for that human aspect of each and every one of us. And I think anyone who's listening to this is going to relate to that, especially as women, because we so need that in our supports of other women. Like you said, as a mom, there are so many people who say, you know, oh, it should be the most magical time of your life. It should be the most transformative. You're going to love that baby more than you're going to love yourself. And while some of those things may be true, it's also really freaking hard to have a kid and the adjustment that comes along with that in your regular life. Even if you were planning it for 10 years before you got pregnant, there are so many changes that happen. There's so much sleep deprivation. There is so much stress and worry and concern. Like, as they grow, there's all these other things you have to start to worry about. And I don't even have kids. I'm just watching all of my friends do it. And I understand the pressure of that. So being able to say, you know what? It's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay if you're stressed out. It's okay if in this moment you really don't want to be mom. That doesn't make you a horrible human being.
Not at all. If anything, it makes you more of a human being, in my opinion.
Yes.
Like, see who you are. I had somebody the other day who I was supposed to have a one-on-one meeting with at 6 a.m. And she messaged me and was like, I can't make it. I'm tired. I need to sleep. And she was so apologetic and like beating herself up. I was like, okay, stop right now, because you're not going to be able to get back to sleep. First of all, you're telling me what you need. I would rather you go sleep and talk to me some other time than drag yourself out of bed, sit in front of me and just not be there because you're tired. You obviously need something. Take what you need. I'm not going to hate you or get mad at you ever for that. As long as you're truthful. I think we need to practice being more truthful, but it also, people need to practice hearing the truth and accepting it, not getting angry and upset, because we all have things happen.
Yes.
Right? So it's just the way it is.
And being willing to, as you said, not just speak, this is what my need is, but have people be receptive to, okay, that's your need. How do we work with that? How do we make things function in a way that works for you? So that everyone, regardless of circumstance, regardless of age, everyone can be comfortable and get what they need out of life. Yes, 100%.
Yep, I agree. And also, like, I know there's a lot of talk about triggers, trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. And so a lot of people don't speak anymore. They don't say what's happened or anything like that. And as much as I want to protect people who have had stuff happen, I'm in that boat. Like, if I told you my life story, you'd probably cry, but it's okay. But we need to be able to release this, so that we have to find almost a balance between sharing and accepting and taking it and feeling uncomfortable, because some of the things that happen are uncomfortable. They're disgusting. It's sad. It's heart-wrenching, but it still needs to be talked about and shared. I did read, I'm trying to remember exactly what the post said, but I can't remember it. But a lady basically was saying that we need to edit more. We're here on this earth for such a short time. Why look at the negative? Be positive. Show the positivity of life. And I was like, that is such toxic positivity.
Right.
Only looking at things from one avenue. For me, everyone looks and they're like, oh, you're so confident. You're so strong. And then they hear that I was an MMA fighter and, oh my gosh, you're so tiny. How did you do all those fights? And blah, blah, blah. But then if I was to go back and say, you know what? I was abused. I had this happen. I had to literally fight for my life. Then they don't want to hear that. They just want to hear the good stuff. But the bad stuff is what made me who I am today. Like, I would not be half the person I am if that stuff didn't happen and I didn't grow and keep fighting and meet people who supported me in it. Right. So we need that balance.
Yes. And that's the thing, that darkness, whether it's, a traumatic experience that happens in your life or whether it's some other form of darkness, those things are equally as important in our life. And so this whole movement of everything has to be positive all the time, and it doesn't matter, just shy away from the darkness, like, or even this, I've heard people talk about, like, let go of your ego altogether. Like, I'm a huge proponent of absolutely not. My ego is what drives me. Who would I be without that? Right? Like, I'm not saying let it control your life and be this egotistical person, but understand that in every aspect of life, there is light and darkness. It has equal value. And so saying to someone, especially if someone's going through a whole horrible experience, personally, professionally, whatever it happens to be, saying, well, look at the bright side. At least there's a silver cloud, like, or at least there's a silver lining in the cloud. Like, that totally negates the fact that I'm having the feelings I'm having in this moment. And you're entitled to those. You're allowed to be confused and angry and upset. And all of those things need to exist just as much as everything else.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I'm a big fan. Like when someone chips a mug or chips a plate or something in my house, I get excited, which sounds weird, but it's because I know next time I'm having that bad day, I can go smash that plate in the backyard. And like it just is such a release. Like watching it explode, I'm like, oh, that is what I needed. And I've had someone say that is the worst violent thing you could do. Like, why would you want to be so violent? And in my head, I'm like, no, the most violent thing would be to have that energy come out in the wrong place at the
Right.
wrong time. So smash it, like do what you need to do. Find a healthy place to obviously do it, but make it
Sure.
happen. Like, why not?
I love that. Now I'm tempted to go through my cupboard and see if I have
Do
anything that's cracked that
it.
I can break.
Do it.
Oh, I love that. But that's the key, right? Find something that works for you. Find something that can be your outlet, regardless of what that happens to be. But also understand that it's okay because you have those feelings just like everybody else does. And the more we tamper down, as you were saying at the beginning of this podcast, the more we tamper down those things, the more damage we do overall. And what does that teach our kids and, the people around us in general? We need to value who we are, all of the good and all of the bad. And I'm not saying, if there's something about yourself you don't like, don't change it. Absolutely feel free to change it. But don't change it because the world is telling you you can't have that aspect of you.
Exactly. One of my biggest teachers was my best friend. It was my cat Psycho, who passed away last year.
Mm.
And I think she was the biggest advocate for me being who I am because her name is Psycho, was Psycho for a reason. She was absolutely insane, but she didn't like anybody but myself. She grew to like my wife, but like it was still hit or miss. But it didn't matter any amount of love I gave her, any amount of, oh, come on, please, or treats or anything. She was herself consistently through her entire 20 or 17 years,
Oh,
17 years of life.
wow.
And it didn't matter the fact that I had once had a partner who abused her because she was just so mean and so evil and blah, blah, blah. She didn't change. She still kept being herself. And it kind of showed me there's going to be someone there to love me no matter what, who I think I am. I have to remain true to myself. And her and I had this special bond. And like, I feel like she got me and I got her. But I think it was because I accepted her for who she was. She was
Right.
okay with just going for days without a pet or going for days without even looking at me because that's just the way that she was. And I was like,
Right.
okay, you live your life, I live mine. And it's just an understanding. But it's like that in life too. There's going to
Yeah.
be people who you don't jive with or you see them as a certain way. Let them do them and maybe they'll surprise you and you'll see, okay, maybe they're that way because blah, 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 or just let them
Right.
be them, right?
I love that. And I love that for you, pets is so much of an example, maybe not just pets, animals in general.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if people can hear it on the podcast, but I am puppy sitting my brother's dog and it is snoring in the background. And every time he snores, I just think to myself, like, imagine because he was a dog that was rescued off of the streets in Texas. He had been shot, he was abused. Like, he has this huge story, again, as we're talking about. But I think to myself, like, to be comfortable enough in the space that you're in now to be able to snore that loudly, like, how much love do you have now for the world that you're in? Right. And I think animals especially can teach us those lessons because we view them so differently than we do other people, right? We have all these expectations with people. We have all of these judgments that we carry with us. And with animals, I think there's just this almost understanding of, okay, you don't have the reasoning skills that we expect people to have. And so because of that, we're going to say, you just do you. And then we're okay with it. And I think it's such a great example for us in interacting with the world in general. So I love that you keep bringing everything back to animals.
I love animals. There's so much more to teach us. And I'm that crazy person who would love to live in the woods with her family and all the animals and just kind of be pulled away a little bit. I think that's my dream. But yeah, it's just because there's so much there to learn. We don't look like, I think we value and we should value, but we value technology. We value information that we can get, but we don't look beyond that enough. You got to
Right.
look at all the lessons you can learn in life everywhere to get this full rounded experience, right?
Absolutely. Oh, I so adore you. I do want to be respectful of your time, though, especially because I know we are taping this right before the long weekend and you have a wonderful family you're going to go spend your long weekend with. So I don't want to keep you forever, but I typically end the podcast by asking people 4 questions. Are you game to answer?
I am game. Take all the time you need. I'm okay.
Awesome. Okay. So the first question is, what is the best or the worst piece of advice you've ever been given and why?
The best or worst? The worst was that I needed to smile more and I had needed to lift my
Oh,
voice. The tone of my voice was a little too deep for everybody, and I would only succeed if I smiled and talked nicely.
oh
My voice is naturally lower, and I love it because, like, I wish I had that husky, like, sexy voice, like Emma Stone. Like, I want that, like,
right?
growl, right? But I remember that person that said that to me. I literally went around for ages just smiling, and I looked weird because, like, your eyes are just like, ah.
Sure.
But I have a resting bitch face, and usually it happens when I'm listening to you. So I always say, if I have a resting bitch face, think it's a good thing because I'm literally thinking about what you're saying and taking it all in. There was another lady on the flip side. I was in grade 3 reading for an elderly lady at Allendale and Milton. It's a long-term care. And she was the most offside person I've ever met. Like, they should not have had her as a student for us to read to, because she told me stories that I should never have heard.
Oh,
But her best advice that she ever said to me was, do not be anyone that people want you to be. You always be you. And
wow.
it will stick to my, like, oh, she was just so cool. She had cat eye glasses and she was
Aw,
herself. Like, she had figured it out. Like, she knew who she was. And I feel like we were paired together for a reason. And
I
she
love
just
that.
drummed that into my head. So yeah.
That's amazing. I love that. And I love that you were so young when someone said to you, like, don't worry about it all. Be
Yeah.
you, because in the end, that's going to be the thing that matters. Oh, that just
Yeah.
warms my heart. I love that. Okay. If you could go back in time and give yourself a piece of advice, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, that's hard. Back in time, leave. I should have left earlier. Left my home earlier. I lived out of a van for a while. Nobody really knew, but when I left, I couldn't afford to get a house and all that stuff. So I was like, screw it, I will live in this van. And I should have done it sooner. I would have, I think, avoided a lot more heartache and started my journey sooner. But I was so thoughtful of the fact that I needed to be with my friends and I needed a job and I needed money and all the things that we think we need,
Right.
but you don't actually see what you do need. So yeah, I'd say run. There's no harm in running.
I love that. And I love that because I think a lot of times when we are ready to make a change like that, that's the thing that stops us, right? That fear of, well, I may lose friends. I may lose this life that I'm used to. So for you to say to people, if I had done that sooner, it might have been a better thing. I might have ended up in a better place sooner than what I did. Because the truth is, we really don't know. Maybe the grass is greener on the other side, maybe it's not. But are you ultimately comfortable staying where you are? And if the answer is no, then it is time to move on.
Exactly. I teach self-defense classes, and for some reason, and it's not for some reason, it's because it's drummed in our head. A lot of women think they need to stand and fight. They need to be strong. Someone's attacking me, I gotta take you. Hell's no. Get the hell out of there. You don't
Right.
need to stand and fight because you don't know how it's gonna go. If you can get out, get out. And that's just kind of the way I always think now.
100%. And it's so interesting that you bring that up because just this morning I was talking to my sister-in-law because we were talking about some horror movies that are coming out because it's almost Halloween and she's a big like Halloween person.
Thank you.
And she was like, it's totally going to be the kind of movie where the girl runs up the stairs instead of out the front door. And I'm like, that drives me crazy. Like, get in the
Nuts.
car, drive away. This is not what you should be. I get that it's a movie and it's all scripted so that the movie can continue. But like, I feel like in real life, we don't make that decision. And that's why the movies do it the way they do, because we make these decisions about stand tall, fight back.
Yeah.
And sure, sometimes you do need to do that, but other times it's okay to just run.
Drop everything and go. I'm
Right.
not climbing those stairs, and I am not going to find out what's making the noise in the
In
closet.
the basement. Yes.
Nope. Nope.
100%. Oh my gosh. Yes, 100%. And it's so interesting to me that so many people say that, but then ultimately what ends up happening in real life is the opposite because we've been trained for so many years to do the opposite, right?
Yep. We have to consciously do what we want to do. It's so hard. It's like deprogramming yourself and then reprogramming yourself to be who you really want to be. Like, it's a
Right.
lot of work. It's a lot of work.
it's a ton of work. And that's why I think it's so important for people to have people like you in their lives, because they do have the ability to sort of start to explore that and take their time to figure out what that looks like. And, the thing that I've learned over the last 6 or 7 years for myself is there really is never an end to that learning. You're constantly discovering something else. And you're like, wait a minute, that wasn't my thought. That was something I was taught when I was 3 years old or whatever. Like, how did that happen? And then you sort of go through the process again with this other thing. And it's this continual life evolution of constantly undoing it all.
Exactly. Exactly. So one introduced me to the idea of little Kim. So younger Kim. And whenever I feel fearful or stressed out, I'm supposed to just sit and feel it, but then talk to little Kim. Talk to the younger version, where all this stemmed from, where all the ideas and the programming came from, and talk to her. And I at first was like, oh, it's silly. Like, I'll do it, but whatever. Life-changing, like literally game-changing. And around the same time, I listened to a guided meditation where they had, for me, you had to walk down a set of stairs, and whatever the stairs looked like in your own mind, you just went with it. And when you got down to the stairs, there was going to be a door. Mine ended up being like an old school cell, like when you find it in a dungeon.
Oh, wow.
You open the cell and you're supposed to just look at what's inside. And obviously the person's talking you through it. And I go for walks through the cemetery near our house. And I was just walking, listening to it. And I was bawling because when I opened the door, I literally saw a younger version of myself, but like hair just messed and matted, dirty, chained, and like, so, I don't know, disgusting. And then you're supposed to go in and pull from your back a backpack. And whatever's in the backpack, you just unload it. So I had tea in my backpack. I'm a teaaholic, but I don't know why that just popped up. And you sit and you bathe her and you like comfort her, and then you release her. But you release her into a place that you can always go back to. And you just let your mind do it. Just follow whatever your mind's doing.
Wow.
And from that day, like this was last year, but from that day forth, it's been this huge change that I don't fully understand, but I always go back to that version of little Kim and talk to her. And she's in a garden and like there's a castle nearby and all this stuff. But it's almost like communicating with what was done to you in the past and the things you were made to believe, the negative things, whether it's about money or about who you are and your self-worth. I just revisit her. And every time I do, it kind of like a light bulb goes in my head. Wait, I think this way because this was said to me, but this isn't actually what I think. I believe this. So it's this huge, big thing, but I'm still on that journey and I love it. It's so
wow. Cool. I'm just, as you're saying all of this, I'm thinking like how unbelievably transformative. I'm going to have to try this because I have never heard this before. But knowing from a psychological standpoint, knowing how impactful that can be for the mind because of the education I have, like, this is huge. So thank you for sharing that with everyone listening, because I think everyone should try it as long as you're comfortable. I'm totally going to try it this afternoon because I think this is genius. I don't know where you got that from, but oh my God, that's genius.
It was amazing. It's actually from Insight Timer. And as we chat, maybe I can find it because I feel this lady who took me on this guided meditation deserves a shout out. But it's just, I think the key, honestly, was just letting go of what I thought life should be and what my meditation should be, and just letting whatever picture came to you. It's like you're unlocking something. There's a reason there was tea in that backpack, or there was a reason the hair stood out to me. Being a Black woman, hair is huge. Like it's a very big thing in Black culture. So obviously that played a part in why that came up. But it's just so interesting. Her name is actually Kim Newing. Mama Goddess on Insight Timer. And it's a whole 10-day course that's called Knowing Your Soul's True Purpose. And I've taken it maybe 3 times now, just re-listened to it. And she's got some insight that's so cool.
That's so amazing. I'm totally going to check that out after we're done recording today. I have 900 questions that I could ask you, but we will at some point revisit that particular topic once I explore it a little bit more. The next question is, what's one thing about yourself that you want to work on?
I always, and I still do to some degree, think that I understand people and that I allow people to speak their truth and be who they are. But I've noticed with my wife, because I think she's so close to me, I don't give her the opportunity to be who she is as much as I do other people. And by that, I mean, I control, but background control, if you understand what I mean. Like, I
Sure.
want things done, but I want it done this way. So I'm going to
Right.
try and manipulate the situation. And it was such an unconscious thing that I do. But when I realized, it actually made me cry, because here I am trying to support people and do all these things. And then there's this woman who's very, like, you think I'm opinionated. I don't know. Nothing. She's very much who she is, unapologetically. And I'm trying to change it. And then I realized with my daughter, I think she's smart. I think she's amazing. But some of the things that I was saying to her was, again, manipulative in its own way. Oh, you're so smart. You're so beautiful. Look what you did. Sometimes she's not being smart, and sometimes she's not being beautiful. Sometimes she's being creative, and sometimes she's just exploring. So the words that I use, like, I need to stand by them more and pick them more appropriately. I mean, I'm a writer. I love words. Like, words are my thing. So to say, you're rude, like, you're not listening to me, you're rude, instead of taking a step back and saying, no, she's actually listening. This is my wife I'm talking about now. She's listening. She just has her boundary and barrier that you're trying to overstep and not
Right.
respect. With my daughter, saying, you're smart, you're beautiful, you're amazing. It's not the be all end all of the world. I need to start saying, wow, you're dirty. That's amazing. Like, you've got dirt all over your feet. You walked in that garden. You, like, when she's been through a spitting phase, couldn't figure out why she was spitting. There's animals on the TV that spit all the time. She's the animal. So instead of screaming at her, stop spitting, people don't spit. Oh, you're being that iguana that you saw that was spitting the water into the water. Like, you know what I mean? So I just, as open as I am, I still feel like I have leaps and bounds to go. I need to just be more open and explore that instead of reacting. Just watch, just take in what's happening and see why it's happening.
What a great answer, because I think so many people can relate to that, especially when you're talking about the people who you're closest with, right? How we interact with those people, especially that inner circle, what we do, how we behave is so different most of the time than how we do with the rest of the world. So
100%.
paying attention to those words and changing their meaning, like, as you said with your daughter, like, you're dirty becomes you're dirty because you played in the garden. That's fantastic, right? Changing the meaning, making it something that isn't necessarily a bad thing, and paying attention to how the context of those words play out is such an important thing. And you are a wordsmith. And one of the things that you do for people who don't follow you on social media is you are consistently posting words. And it's interesting because being dyslexic, I've never been a huge fan of words, and I have a really hard time sometimes with words. So for me, when you post those, it's always a fantastic reminder of, ooh, that's a word I didn't know. How can I work it into my vocabulary? How can I make this something that I remember? And so I'm challenging myself consistently with the words that you're posting, because some of them maybe not easily work into a regular sentence, but then some of them I have these moments of, how cool is that? I wonder if anyone else knows this word. And then I start talking about this word that I've never heard before. And so for people who are listening, if for no other reason, 100% you need to follow Kim just to do what I do with all of these words that she shares, because it's fantastic and amazing. And sometimes I think to myself, do you just like sit down with a dictionary and like pick a word for the day? Because that's what it feels like sometimes.
So this is weird fact about me. Sometimes when I say a word or I think of it, I literally either get a taste or I get a feeling. Like, it's more than just the word being pretty or cool. Or I literally get a sensation or a feeling. So a lot of the words that I post, they're the ones where I've heard them or I've read them and I got that reaction. So then I'm like, no, this is one. I don't know if you've seen the show Schitt's Creek.
I have not, but I have heard about it.
Great show. Love it. Like, I'm obsessed. But Moira, she also uses the most random words, oftentimes totally out of context. But while watching that show, every time she said one of those words, I'd feel like a pull at the back of my neck, like a great sensation. So I was like, oh, I got to see if that one's real. And all the real ones lately, that's what I've been posting. So far, only one person's realized this, and they're like, hey, all of those last month's words were from Schitt's Creek. I was like, yes, you're very like, you saw it. But yeah, it's just the ones that really stand out to me and like make me feel something that I post.
I love that. And I love that you mentioned the sort of sensation that comes along with it, the tasting or the feeling, because there is a word for that in psychology. And we don't often, because we love as human beings to label people, we don't often talk about the fact that this is a normal thing. There's actually a lot of people who, and when I say a lot, I don't mean like hundreds of millions of people around the world, but a lot of people who are now starting to express that they do have this, and that, whether it be a feeling, whether it be a taste, whether it be a color that they see. And it's so interesting because the more I talk to people, the more people tend to be a little bit, as you said, as you tell the story, people get more comfortable. People tend to open up a little bit more and say, you know what, I picked that lottery scratcher that won me $500 because I felt something, or because it glowed, or whatever it happens to be. And, we theoretically live in a world that doesn't accept that. But I think more and more people are getting open to the idea that that is something. So the fact that you taste words or feel words, or they have this impact on you, is magical as far as I'm concerned. And I love, love, love that you brought that up. So anyone who is listening who experiences the same thing, I think it's magical and you should embrace it. I had a professor in college say to me once, the reason that you have such a hard time processing in general is because you feel things that you see. So you can stand in front of a painting and feel the pain, the sorrow, the everything that went into it. And, here's this word, and I don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but here's this word that goes with that. And that's why this is so impactful for you. And it literally changed the course of my life, because instead of, standing in a museum and trying to hold back all the tears, I would walk into a place and I would literally crumble into a million pieces while staring at this beautiful piece of art. And it's okay. Sure, people around me think I've lost my mind, but I'm okay with it now, because someone telling me this is just who you are, and that's okay. There's a word for it. It makes sense to this whole population of people because they feel it too. And I was like, okay, great. Now I know what that is. Yeah. So I love, love, love that you brought that up, because I may not see the color, I may not taste it, but for me, there is an aspect of life that I feel that other people don't feel. And I feel like that's such a similar thing.
Yes, 100%. And just think of how much heightened your experience would be, because you're not focusing on holding that emotion in or controlling. You're just experiencing and letting it go and letting it hit you. And I love that. That makes me excited. I love hearing that story. Right? Like, I'm not the only one. That's amazing.
100%. Definitely not the only one. Okay. The last question, because I do want to be respectful and we're like running over on time now. I know you said I could keep you, but I also know you have a family to get back to.
No worries.
The last question is, what does happiness mean to you?
Ooh, that is deep. So I've been actually venturing through this with success and like money and jobs and all that fun stuff. And happiness to me is freedom, complete freedom. And I'm not talking freedom as in freedom in the world to do what I want. I mean freedom. You're not going to control me. I can say, feel, act, do whatever I choose to do and just live that way. I keep going back to the cabin in the woods. Really, it's a farm. Living on my farm, doing what I want, growing my food with my kids running around, my wife chopping wood. She hates to work, so not working, me writing my books, teaching all of that stuff, just with that feeling, that is happiness. But also in a large way, not connected to the outside world as much as I am today, which is a very hard thing for me to say, because I was a journalist and I went to journalism school, and it's all about tying and connecting and story and all that stuff. But I need that separation, because I just don't agree with everything that's going on in the world. And happiness right now would be taking a step back and just focusing on us, supporting others, but focusing on us.
I love that. I love that answer. And as you talk about sort of your house in the woods, I pictured the farm property my family has up north, because my dad has just built a house on it. And I'm like, someday this is going to be, maybe not this particular property, but this is going to be Kim. And, she's going to have 50 acres or whatever it happens to be, because that's what we have up north. And it's just, I get where you're coming from, because, that disconnection, that little bit of isolation, that getting back to our roots and reconnecting with the earth and the soil and nature, such an important thing. And I think a lot right now about how we almost take for granted everything that we have right now because it's so easily accessible, right? Everybody can go to the grocery store. Everybody can, well, let's not say everybody, because obviously there are circumstances where that's not true. For the most part, people have easy access to these things. And every year when I plant the garden, I think to myself, like, if people actually understood how much work it takes to grow a tomato, we would appreciate things differently, right? So I love this concept of you in the forest, connecting with nature and growing your own stuff and, being completely off grid in a way. I think that's beautiful. And I think a lot of people, especially over the last couple of years, have started to dream of something similar.
You know what? I would even go further. One of my other dreams is to actually have my own hospice on my farm. So people who want to die in the woods, who want to die near water, who want to die in a barn, who want to die wherever, however, we're so controlled in life with what we're allowed to do and how to do it. I feel like the last stage is, well, not the last stage, but the last stage that we know about is death. Right. Why shouldn't you have the freedom and the happiness to die the way you want to, where you want to, feeling so serene? Like, it's really weird and kind of morbid, but like, I would love to be under some tree, just laying in the dirt, covered in it, like just dirty as can be, and looking at the trees move. And that be the last thing I see with my family around me. Like, that would be, I would go and I wouldn't even care where I ended up after. It would just be amazing, peaceful. That would be happiness too, helping people to do that. Maybe one day it'll happen.
I love that. I love the idea of that. And I think you're so right. So much of life is controlled, and being able to, at the end, have that kind of power to determine what makes you comfortable and how you want sort of for it to go in the end. Oh, I love the idea of that. I am sure you will achieve it someday. And I will totally bring you back on the podcast and talk all about it when it happens.
Thank you. It'll be amazing.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. For everybody listening, again, I will post in the show notes how you can follow Kim. She also does her own podcast, by the way, which we did not get much time to talk about. So do you want to mention it really quickly before I let you go?
Sure. It's called Fireside Stories Human Libraries. And I invite people on just to have a chat about their unapologetic, amazing lives. Maybe it's their businesses. Maybe it's something they've gone through. Maybe it's just a weird idea or even a normal idea that they have. And they just get to talk about it and have a conversation, much like you do as well, Crystal, and just showing up unapologetically. If anybody wants to listen to it, it's on all the normal media stations that you listen to podcasts.
All the podcast things, which now there's like 900 of them and I can't keep track anymore. I'm just like, do you have a cell phone? Yes. Is it Apple or Android? Okay, here are your options, because there's just so much of it out there now. I feel like 6 years ago when I started podcasting, nobody really knew what it was. And people were like, right? And now I feel like everybody is talking podcasts, which I love because I'm super obsessed and I like subscribe to 100 and some odd podcasts. So like, I get it, but I also feel like it's hard to keep up with it all. Right. So I'm grateful for, the services that allow us to plug it in one place and it sends it everywhere else. Cause now I don't have to worry about it.
Exactly. It'd be too much. It would be way too much.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Kim. I cannot tell you how wonderful this has been. And honestly, I could keep you for like 4 more hours and we could totally just keep chatting. So I love you. I appreciate that you took the time and I hope you have a fantastic week with your family.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. And I love you too. And I'm excited to see what else you come up with and listen to all your other podcasts too.
Thank you so much. And thank you for listening. I hope you guys have a great week and I will chat with you all next week. Bye for now.